Vishnupad Paramahansa Paripadika Charja After Saraswati Sriman His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Vimanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the Son of the devotees. All glories to the Son of the devotees. All glories to the Son of the devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Balabe Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Pachanani Sesa Sunyavadi Pastatari Satari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 5, entitled Viduras Talks with Maitreya. Text number 46. Panena te deva kata shudaya. Panena te deva kata shudaya. Pavriddha bhaktya vishadashayaye. Pavriddha bhaktya vishadashayaye. Vairagya sharam pratilabhya bodham. Vairagya sharam pratilabhya bodham. Yatanjasana virakunta dishnyam. Yatanjasan virakunta dishnyam. Panena te deva kata shudaya. Pavriddha bhaktya vishadashayaye. Vairagya sharam pratilabhya bodham. Yatanjasan virakunta dishnyam. Yatanjasan virakunta dishnyam. Ladies, Panena te deva kata shudaya. Pavriddha bhaktya vishadashayaye. Vairagya sharam pratilabhya bodham. Yatanjasan viyurakantajisjam. Panena, by drinking. Te, of you. Deva, O Lord. Kata, topics. Shuddhaya, of the nectar. Pavridha, highly enlightened. Bhaktya, by devotional service. Vishada ashaya, with a greatly serious attitude. Yea, those who. Viragya shadam, the entire purport of renunciation. Pratilabhya, achieving. Bodham, intelligence. Yata, as much as. Anjasa, quickly. Anviyu, achieve. Akuntadishyam, Vaikuntaloka, in the spiritual sky. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. O Lord, persons who, because of their serious attitude, attain the stage of enlightened devotional service, achieve the complete meaning of renunciation and knowledge, and attain the Vaikuntha Loka in the spiritual sky simply by drinking the nectar of your topics. Purport. The difference between the impersonalistic mental speculators and the pure devotees of the Lord is that the former pass through a miserable understanding of the absolute truth at every stage, whereas the devotees enter into the kingdom of all pleasures even from the beginning of their attempt. The devotee has only to hear about devotional activities, which are as simple as anything in ordinary life, and he also acts very simply. Whereas the mental speculator has to pass through a jugglery of words which are partially facts and partially a make-show for the maintenance of an artificial, impersonal status. What a sentence. In spite of his strenuous efforts to attain perfect knowledge, the impersonalist attains merging into the impersonal oneness of the Brahmajyoti of the Lord, which is also attained by the enemies of the Lord, simply because of their being killed by him. The devotees, however, attain to the highest stage of knowledge and renunciation and achieve the Vaikuntha Lokas, the planets in the spiritual sky. The impersonalist attains only the sky and does not achieve any tangible transcendental bliss, whereas the devotee attains to the planets where real spiritual life prevails. With a serious attitude, the devotee throws away all the achievements like so much dust, and he accepts only devotional service, the transcendental culmination. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sigurave Namah Gambharodhivachalam Pangam Mangayate Ginamati Sigirim Dinitarnam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram. O Lord, persons who, because of their serious attitude, attain the stage of enlightened devotional service, achieve the complete meaning of renunciation and knowledge, and attain the Vaikuntha Loka in the spiritual sky simply by drinking the nectar of your topics. So, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasyatmika buddhi ekeha kuru nandana. That in order to um, actually benefit from the practice of devotional service, or for that matter, this human form of life. Excuse me, I just have a chest problem. The devotees have to become resolute in purpose. And it's not that we just sort of coast along, because the tendency is to do that. Just sort of get by. Let me do enough to survive another day. And then tomorrow, I'll try to get there again. And as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhogaishvarya prasakta antaripat samado navidiyate. They don't actually achieve anything. So one has to become serious, and as we're seeing here in this wonderful verse and purport by Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada is making so many incredible points, that the difference between the impersonalistic mental speculators and the pure devotees of the Lord is that the impersonal path is miserable. And Krishna also explains that in Bhagavad Gita, right? Klesho dikatiras tesham abhyakta sakta chetasam. That those who are attached to the unmanifested or impersonal, their path is very troublesome. And to make progress in that practice is very difficult, especially for one who's embodied. And the process of bhakti is so nice, as we're seeing here, that one can do a very simple, just the most simple things, and experience the pleasure or the satisfaction of a spiritual life. Whereas again here, the impersonalists, they have to pass through all kinds of miserable austerities. It's very, very challenging. And so much so, as Prabhupada points out here at the last part of the purport, that they only achieve a certain level of progress. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But here, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that those who are engaged constantly in chanting and hearing about me, or the sadhus, and from the sadhus, do not suffer material miseries. Whereas here, the impersonalistic path, the jnanis, the yogis, the mystics, is very challenging. And whereas on the other side, conversely, one who's engaged in devotional life, marashraya katamrishta shinmanti katayanti cha. On the other hand, the devotees are so filled up with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. Kapila tells his mother that there's no space for anything else. It's just like if you have a cup of water and you keep on adding milk to it, eventually it becomes pure milk. All the water and all the diluting action of water is negated, and it becomes pure milk. So, Krishna consciousness for the devotees, it's like that as well. That there's no space. There's no space for a miserable situation, because they're constantly absorbed in devotional life. As Prabhupada points out here, the devotees enter into the kingdom of all pleasures, even from the beginning of their attempt. And we can see that practically in devotional life, that even someone walks into the door, immediately they're affected, they're given that special experience or mercy of the Lord. It's so nice. Just like, even in a broader sense, when you go to Rath Yatras, it always amazes me that the Rath Yatra is in a big venue, right? And it's surrounded by other things going on out there. And as soon as you walk into that bubble of Lord Jagannath's festival, the whole experience is different. And people comment like that, even the local authorities, they comment like that, isn't it? They comment how in your festival we don't have the conflict and even some of the riffraff that you find just outside, just across the walk. It's a whole different experience. So the process of Krishna consciousness, the process of devotional service, it's full of pleasures, even from the very beginning. A new person walks into the door and they can experience immediately the beautiful sight of the deities, or the beautiful smells and sounds, and the energy is of a whole different state. And he also, and Prabhupada points out here so nicely, which are as simple as anything in ordinary life. In ordinary life, you can go into a store, or you can go into a shopping center, or you can go into a whatever, and it feels mundane. But as soon as you walk into the atmosphere of a devotional life, it's a whole different experience, even the most simplest things. And the devotee also has to act very simply. It's not that we have to do anything very special or complicated, like the karmis, jnanis, and yogis. They have to go through all sorts of austerities to try and achieve some sort of elevated position. But the devotees, they simply have to surrender to the sound, surrender to the activities, surrender to the knowledge that's being imparted, and the whole experience becomes very, very blissful. And even an innocent person who's coming into that atmosphere, they benefit. So it's a question of knowing what to do and what not to do. Krishna explains that in Bhagavad Gita also, right? Pravrittim cha, nivrittim cha. The devotees understand what to do, how things should be done, how to act properly, and how not to act properly, what to do, what to avoid. It's not complicated. And it doesn't have to be a very strenuous thing, as Prabhupada points out here. In spite of his strenuous efforts to attain perfect knowledge, the impersonalists attains merging in the impersonal Brahman of the Brahmajyoti. But that's already available for the demons even. You might as well just be a demon. Of course, we don't encourage people to become demons, but we can understand that the same effort, the effort of austerities and tapasyas and years and years of self-control or self-denial only achieves the Brahmajyoti. And that's easily available to the demons that were killed by the Lord. In the Krishna book we read how Krishna would kill Shishupal or this one or that one, and their energy of their life force, their soul, their spirit would enter within the body of the Lord. So we don't have any interest in such things. Instead, the devotees are only interested in the highest knowledge, the highest stage of knowledge, as Prabhupada points out here, right? Testaravinda nayanasya padaravinda kunjalgamishya tulasi mukarananda vayu. The beautiful verse that describes how the soft breeze that was carrying the aroma of tulsi, which was placed on the lotus feet of the Lord, entered into the nostrils of the sages. Such a beautiful description. And that aroma, by smelling that aroma, they experienced a change within their body and mind. Even though they were Brahmanandis, right? They were realized in Brahmananda, in the impersonal. But as soon as they smelled the aroma of the tulsi from the Lord's lotus feet, they experienced a complete change in their mind and body. And we can see that also practically within our own experiences in Krishna consciousness. That as soon as one engages in these simple activities of devotional life, it's not very complicated. Anyone can engage in a devotional practice. It's not complicated. Although sometimes, we try to make it complicated, or the mind complicates things. What is that saying? It's complicated for the complicated mind. Something like that. No, it doesn't have to be like that. It can be very simple. And one simply has to engage in the very simple activities of devotional life with a serious attitude, which of course was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, right? Prabhupada points out here that because of their serious attitude, attain the stage of enlightened devotional service, achieve the complete meaning of renunciation and knowledge. What is that Vairagya Vidya? That Vairagya Vidya means to be engaged in Nija Bhakti Yoga. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach us what is the real meaning of renunciation and the development of knowledge. What is the real purpose of it? Is it to become a mystic, a jnani, or a tapasvi? No, obviously it's not. Because there's no satisfaction there. There's no satisfaction there. And the proof is that even great tapasvis like Vishwamitra, Prabhupada likes to use that example. It's such a good example. Although he was a great tapasvi, as soon as he heard the tinkling of the bells of Menaka, he lost it. So, what is the purpose? What is the purpose of all that gyan, yoga, tapasya, if you don't understand the real meaning of it? And the real meaning of it is to be engaged in devotional activities, as Prabhupada points out here in the purport, that the culmination, the real culmination of all that, of transcendental knowledge itself, is to throw away everything like so much dust. Right? Otherwise, there's every chance. Janye Ravindaksha Muktamanas Twayi Asta Abibuddha Abhishudaye. Twayi Asta Abhishudaye. That there's every chance of falling back down. That although a person may be very fixed up in austerities and penances, and may try to achieve the highest position, and even consider himself very advanced. Right? Sometimes the tapasvis and the jnanis and yogis, they consider themselves very advanced, but they fall down, it's explained, from their position of imagined superiority due to not having a regard for the Lord's lotus feet. Tvayi asta abhishuddha buddhaya. Their intelligence is not complete. Their austerities are not complete. And as a result, they fall back down into material activities and mundane activities. I remember when I first came to Krishna consciousness, I remember hearing one statement from Srila Prabhupada that these great or advanced sannyasis would sometimes come back down to mundane activity, and I was always curious by that statement. It never really registered in my brain, but one year we went to, the first year we went to Vrindavan. I remember stepping on a nail, and I had to go to a clinic, which was a short distance from Krishna Balaram. And as soon as I walked into the clinic, the first thing you see is a desk, and there's a big sannyasi sitting behind it. And he had some young ladies sitting next to him. And behind him, obviously he's the person who's in charge of the clinic. So, and then I looked behind him, and in the yard behind him, there's chickens running around. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is what Srila Prabhupada means by these so-called advanced sadhus, saints, tapasvis. They do so much austerity only to again engage in mundane works. What is the purpose? What is the purpose? And it's not even joyful on top of it. In Haridwar one year I was there, we were distributing prasadam to the some of the sadhus who would walk around every morning. It's interesting, it's like clockwork. Every morning at 8:30 a.m., a band of sadhus would come into this. I was staying at a place called Sadhu Bella, and a band of sannyasis, maybe 15 or 20 renunciates actually. They weren't all sannyasis. Um, some were wearing saffron, some were not, and you could see that they were in the beginning stages of their practice. The head sannyasi would walk in. Everybody had a very morose face. It was really quite astounding. They would walk in with a straight face. They would hold out their little loda, and you give them whatever they want. Some people would take this, some people would take that, some would take almost nothing. Some would really enjoy the prasadam. But afterwards, we would chant Hare Krishna on the way out. And you could see how their expressions, immediately it changed. They came in stone-faced, no expression, not practically didn't even acknowledge that you were there. You were serving out a couple chapatis and a dal or something and a gulab jamun. And they take it, they sit down, and as soon as the first, the head of the group was finished with his prasadam, he would stand up, and everybody else would immediately stand up also. As soon as he finished, everybody else had to stand up, and they started following him. And then of course, we would chant Hare Krishna on the way out, and then all of a sudden, then you could see their faces would change dramatically. Right after the sadhus left, the cows were there at 8:30. No, it was 9 a.m. Every morning, the cows would be there, and we'd go out and we'd feed the cows whatever was left over from breakfast. Especially they liked the chapatis. But it doesn't have to be a miserable experience, as Prabhupada is pointing out here, as experienced by the impersonalists. It doesn't have to be. Simply by hearing, as we were hearing nicely from Maharaj yesterday, right? Tvam bhakti yoga paribhavata hit saroja ashe shrutekshita patu nanupanksa nanu, what does that verse go? Satekshita patu nanunata pungsang. Yeah, that simply by hearing, one can see the Lord simply by the hearing process, as Prabhupada so nicely points out here in the purport. That simply by the hearing process, the heart becomes cleansed. And when the heart is cleansed, the Lord takes his seat there, and he manifests himself in his eternal form to that devotee. It's such a blissful process that simply by hearing, and hearing from the right source, right? Again, that is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, to teach the process of Krishna consciousness, to teach the right purposes behind that renunciation and austerities, and to do it quickly. We don't have to engage in long life after life, year after year. This is the future, I guess you could say, the best prospects for those engaged in their impersonal practices. Yat sangha virya labdham nija virya vibhavam. It's a very beautiful shloka given by the residents of Jambudweep. They were pointing out that by associating with persons who have made Mukunda, who have understood Mukunda to be their all in all, one can come to understand that same Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when that vibration enters into the heart, it cleanses it of all contamination, right? Just like we say every morning, Nasta Presha Badeshu, that Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati Uttama Shloka Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. The Bhagavatam, when you hear these wonderful descriptions, they cleanse the heart. And when that heart is cleansed, the process of Krishna consciousness develops so very nicely. Whereas conversely, going to the Ganga or going to holy tirthas, you can go to the Ganga and you can take bath, or you can go to the holy places and become freed from contamination or infections. That's nice. But that takes a long time. But the process of devotional service is the achievements are immediately accessible. So the comment is that what sane man will not associate with such devotees? So, again, because it's easily available through the process of bhakti yoga, and one simply has to take to it, and the experience is there. And are there any questions or comments? Hare Krishna, Emil.
So the question is, what binds impersonalists to stay in the light where there's no ground, nothing they can grasp?
Because it's sense gratification. It's the subtlest level of sense gratification. Because the Brahmajyoti is a very pleasant. It's free from misery. It's a status where one is free from misery. But you can't stay there. And we all have experience that you can, just like if you go up into the sky, eventually you have to come down. So the experience is there, certainly, but that experience is just freedom from misery. But the living being is by nature pleasure seeking. So eventually the thought or the desire develops that you need some enjoyment, some kind of activity. Anandamaya bhyasat, the living entity is by nature pleasure seeking. So it's not natural for us to just try to negate. It's not a comfortable situation, and neither is it pure or eternal, and it's not the highest, as Prabhupada as explained in this wonderful verse here, that the real meaning of renunciation and knowledge, which the Brahmanandis are trying to achieve, is attained simply by drinking the nectar of Krishna's topics. Hearing about devotional activity and Krishna's activities are the satisfaction that it's not available in that impersonal realm. Any other questions or comments? Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.